Hi, Algebra 1. In Lesson 8, we're going to be doing some more factoring here with factors that end up looking a little bit different than what we've seen. Here we go. We're going to skip to the activity called What If There Is No Linear Term? And I'm going to show you what this means with our first example. X minus 10 times x plus 10, we need to find the standard form. So I have our diagram written out. And when we multiply each piece and then combine like terms, I notice that I'm just going to have x squared minus 100 because negative 10x plus 10x is 0x. So there is no middle term with x. That's what it means by no linear term. So our standard form here is just x squared minus 100. When I've multiplied out the second one and we go to combine like terms, we notice that 2x minus 2x is going to be 0x. So I'm left with just 4x squared minus 1. Again, no linear term there in the middle. In your next example, they put the number first and the variable second. It doesn't matter. You set it all up exactly the same and multiply, and we do see that negative 4x and positive 4x gives you 0x. So you're left with 16 minus x squared. Make sure you're keeping track of your negatives and watching your signs. Now we're going from the standard form and creating the factored form. So I set up my diagram and I put in what I know, x squared minus 81. And I know that these two pieces are going to combine to give me 0x. So we start out by saying that, well, x times x is x squared. And this is a negative down here. So I know that I need to have a positive and a negative in order to multiply those to get a negative. And I'm thinking of what multiplies to get me 81. So I'm going to try 9 and negative 9. And when I multiply that out, I see that those middle terms are going to result in 0x when you combine them. So I do get x squared minus 81 from this. So the factored form was x plus 9 from our first piece up there times x minus 9 from the other term along the side. To get 49, I'm going to try 7 times 7. And then again, I need a plus and a minus here because this is a negative here. And to get y squared, I'm going to have y times y. So positive y times negative y would get me negative y squared. Fill in the rest of this. I have 7y and negative 7y. So when I combine those, I would end up with 0y. So I end up with 49 minus y squared, which is what we want. So those factors we used were 7 plus y, that's our first one across the top, times 7 minus y, the other factor along the side. In this one, I have a few more options. How can I get 9z squared? I could do 9z times 1z, or I could do 3z times 3z. And I'm noticing a pattern with my factors here that things are generally very similar, like this 2x plus 1 times 2x minus 1. So I'm going to try 3z times 3z. And then I know that I need a plus and a minus to get that negative 16. And I'm going to try 4 times 4. So when I multiply this out, I get 12z minus 12z there. Combine those like terms, that will be 0z. And so I have 9z squared minus 16, which is what we want. So our factors were 3z plus 4 times 3z minus 4. This one looks a little bit different with fractions, but don't let that scare you. What times itself gets you 49/16? Well, I know that 7 times 7 gets me 49, and 4 times 16, or 4 times 4 gets me 16. So I test that out, and I do get 49/16 if I take 7/4 times 7/4. And then I need a plus and a minus because it's negative d squared, and I'm going to have a plus d minus d. And when I multiply that out, I do get my 49/16 minus d squared, which is what I want. and those factors were 7/4 plus d times 7/4 minus d. In this next one, they were just trying to trick you, keep you on your toes. This one does still have a linear term because it was an addition in both of them. You still end up with an x value in the middle because I have a positive 10x plus a positive 10x. It's going to be the positive 20x. In this next one, we have x squared minus 6. Now I'm thinking of what number times itself would get me 6, and it's just not going to work out nicely. So when that happens, we can just use the square root of that number. And what we end up with in our table looks like this. And so we see that our x values, we have a positive square root of 6 times x and a negative square root of 6 times x. When you combine those, that's going to be 0x. And so I end up with x squared minus 6, which is what we want. So our factors that we end up with were x plus the square root of 6 times x minus the square root of 6. It doesn't look as nice, but it still works. This last one, I know I could do x times x to get x squared. And then to get 100, if I try out 10 plus 10, they both need to be positive to get me a positive 100. I'm going to end up with 10x here, 10x there, which is going to be a total of 20x, which is not what I want. So we could try making these negative, and then I would have x minus 10 times x minus 10, which is going to be a negative 10x there and a negative 10x there. I still get a positive 100 because it's a negative times a negative, but then I end up with x squared minus 20x plus 100, which is still not what we want. And so this one is not factorable. No matter what we do, even if we use square roots, we can't get it to work.